because we feel like that if we see some start of that hate, that we have a chance to sway it before it develops into a crime. And in addition to that, we have formed a violent crime task force, which also includes hate crime, that actually works on preventative, because across America, violent crimes have been going up. And then in addition to that, there one of the most important things I think in our community there is that we need to be willing to extend that hand of kindness to our neighbor, and especially a neighbor who may not look like us or may not have the same beliefs that we have, may be very different, because we have become an international city. Right now, citizens represent 100 different countries. And so in 2017, we started a kindness campaign in which we are really trying to put on the minds of our citizens to do random acts of kindness. And now in all of our elementary schools, both public and private, they all are teaching curriculum centered around being kind to your neighbor, and all of the different offshoots of that. And of course, we needed to grow more, and we formed a community relations commission in which they are promoting that kindness campaign. And now we need to do even more. So I'm going to stop. I gave a long answer there, and there's more to tell, but I'll stop so that we can go on with more.
Sure. So right along with that, we've been told that a task force to create a racial equity plan in Arlington is in the works. Can you tell us more about that?
I sure can. The murder of George Floyd, I think it just crystallized there for all of us there, the hate that was there. And then the fact that we had both police officers and people standing and watching it. I think it has melted a lot of hard hearts there. And now we have an opportunity, I think, to step through the door and really work on all forms of discrimination and problems in equity. And I feel also a deep sense of responsibility. And I think it's on all of our shoulders that now is our time to step forward and do more there to do that. So our council is moving forward on and we actually Dr. Odom Wesley, one of our council members, came up with the name, but calling it Unity Council, because that is what the end result we want to have coming out of this diverse group that is going to be made up of around 25 members. We also are going to have liaison groups that will be able to be there, may not necessarily be voting, but providing resource and input there from education sector and nonprofits that work in many of these areas and others. So we're in the middle of putting that together, and we hope to be able to have that ready here by the 1st of August there to be able to go forward. And we're very hopeful. And by the way, this is going to be a very broad charge for this Unity Council. Certainly there will be an emphasis, a priority of taking care of our Black citizens, but it will go way beyond that. It will be hitting every ethnic group. In addition to that, it will be looking there in all forms of life and government here in Arlington. Where are there inequities and where is there discrimination, so that it can be addressed? This group will come forward with an equity plan in February and of this next year. And then of course in that, in addition to the equity plan, we also want to we look to them to be coming forward with recommendations on what task force and more long-term strategies that we can do to help change culture too. And of course, looking to the faith-based community is huge. And I'm very appreciative of the faith-based community and the participation. And then, of course, I know Rabbi Yurovich, but I did not know Cantor Sherry Allen. And it was great that she has joined our Zoom calls and provided great input there too, because we're in the middle of two crises going on right now. One is the virus, but also is we have a fight against the virus. We have a fight against racial discrimination that has heightened because of that opportunity that I mentioned there at the beginning. So your involvement is key here in helping us move forward.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's nice to hear about the kindness campaign. That was something that I was not aware of at all. So our congregation enjoys a great relationship with our local police officers and law enforcement in general. Like you said, at the same time, we're concerned about what happened to George Floyd and others like him. So in the police force itself, how is reform being instituted? And can you talk about the 8 can't wait principles and whether or not Arlington has or will be adopting them?
Yes, we felt very strongly, I'm going to say we, the council felt very strongly we needed to move ahead quickly and be able to make some change immediately. And the 8 can't wait was a great opportunity. And we had citizens from all over our city to bring to our attention the 8 can't wait. And myself, I was not familiar with it until this incident happened. So we immediately asked our police chief to look at those 8 can't wait to see where we were at in compliance with those 8. And basically, we had 2 policies that were not written that we needed to make written. And then the 8th one was that we had a restraining hold there that was actually on the sides of the neck that we had to move out of only using it in the chance of an officer fighting for his life. So that brought us into compliance with the 8 can't wait. But then we also had another opportunity to move ahead because the 21st century community policing principles that were adopted widely throughout our nation as a result of President Obama's task force there. And by the way, it's been adopted by almost all police departments as great recommendations, and also on both sides of the aisle, I might add too. There, so there are around 70 recommendations there. Our police department was one of 15 that was actually recognized and chosen to participate in that. But I said, let's go back to those and let's go through them, because that is the best recommendations that are out there now. And so there are some of those that we have not implemented. There are some of those that we've implemented, but we need to do more. And we actually scheduled 2 extra council meetings in which we have been working on this. So our police department is going to be going through all of those 70 recommendations and coming out with new policies there, which either ramp up or adopt some that we have not done there through that, so that we can basically, I just kind of, to put it succinctly, our short-term goals is working with the police department right now on police reform to make our department better. In addition to that, our midterm goals will be associated with our Unity Council, and we will also be instructing them as recommendations come out. They don't have to wait till February; they can immediately bring them to council, and then when they come forward with their equity plan, that's our midterm. But then they also will have long-term goals. So we are achieving things as we speak there and working to improve. And then we are also working on ramping up our kindness campaign there too.
Great, great. So we know that police officers are often called upon to serve more like mental health professionals, mediators, sometimes even drug or alcohol counselors. Are any efforts being made to reallocate some resources from the police department to social services?
Well, interestingly enough, we have social workers within our police department. They're not officers, but they are social workers. And I'll call one example of that is Alliance for Children that was started in the 90s. And basically, before we had Alliance for Children, if a child was a victim of a crime, they would go to the police station and be questioned. And you can imagine not only what that would do to the child. You know, it just was in a really tough environment. In addition to that, our police officers were not trained in how to question children, and many times they would freeze up and would be terrified. And then that would result in long-term effects to that child, even beyond what had already happened in child abuse, perhaps, there that was happening. So consequently, Alliance for Children, a nonprofit, was formed in which psychologists, their doctors, and social workers all work together to provide a good environment there. In addition to that, uh, police officers were trained in how to question the children. And so consequently, that has been a hugely successful program that now has spread throughout the United States and started here in Arlington. Uh, they're in that. So that is an example. Now, I want to get to what you just talked about. We are now questioning, does that need to be underneath the police department? You know, I'm talking about our social workers. In addition to that, our police department has received specialized training to deal with people suffering from mental health issues and also other both mental and physical challenges that they have, which I think is important. But however, again, does that need to be under another department? And then even the way we respond to calls, you know, does it always need to be a police officer that responds to every 911 call? No, it does not. And I think we have an opportunity here. We actually had a program in which we basically had a police assistant program in which civilians would go out and answer certain calls when it didn't have anything to do with a crime there. And we did not meet with very much success from our citizens. However, I think now the national rhetoric is there to where we can be more successful in that, and of course, not be sending a full police cars and policemen to them. So it is very much a topic that we are working on now. Now, let me mention to you a term that has gotten people really worked up, and that's defund the policeman. And that is a very scary topic because nobody knows what that means. And in fact, you know, what it immediately brings up, that, oh my goodness, we're going to do away with our police and we're going to be at risk. Or others are very excited about, yes, let's do get rid of the police and let's defund. Well, that isn't what we're doing here in Arlington. Lisa, we're doing what you talked about and looking at what are some of the things that our policemen probably shouldn't be answering and shouldn't be doing, and be moving that to other departments or perhaps even other organizations that that would be addressing that. And that is going on right now.
I had the lawn people making noise, so I muted myself there.
Okay.
Uh, well, now to the other crisis, the COVID-19 crisis. We have a few questions about that. We're wondering how the pandemic is affecting Arlington in particular. And can we go to some website to see how many beds are available in Arlington right now? And then we have a couple more questions about that as well.
Well, I would encourage you to go to the city's website. It is award-winning and considered one of the best city websites in America. in fact, our communications department just received an award from Harvard Bloomberg as the top communications department there in America. However, it is a real problem there, because even though the social media reach of the city of Arlington is the largest of any city in Texas, it's not enough. And then we all go to different TV stations to get our news. We may go to different places on the internet to get the news. Please add arlingtontx.gov to your place to go find out what's going on here in our city. We produce a lot of videos and informational videos on all types of topics, and right now we're producing around 20 a week. There are a lot going on there with it, but we also have a section on the coronavirus specifically, where you can go and see what is happening, here in Arlington on the virus itself. And then let me give you a quick update on the coronavirus. When we were coming out of our stay-at-home order in May, things were going really well. Our numbers were trending down. We went from 70 in the hospitals here in Arlington to around 50 that were there. And why is that number so important? Because we cannot afford for our hospitals to be overrun with patients with a COVID virus to where we cannot treat all of the other medical needs of our citizens. And you saw that happen in some of the European countries there with it. So that is one of the number one statistics that our emergency operations personnel and our medical director watch. And so we're going through May, things are looking really well, and even we start into June, and then literally about 10 days ago, we started seeing spikes, a surge in the virus. Our medical professionals believe it is very much attributable to our behavior, because we stopped wearing the mask, we weren't paying attention to social distancing or the hygiene. And then in addition to that, the bars in particular were creating major outbreaks. And in the bars, literally when you are drinking, basically the spray or the droplets that are coming from you go much further than the 6 feet there in the social distancing. And you may have heard too that when you're singing, that spray goes further there with it. And in fact, Cantor Allen can tell you there was a lot of joking among several of our clergy about the fact that many of them, when they are talking, they have a bigger spray than the 6 feet there too. But anyway, what has happened there is that the medical professionals that are legitimate have all agreed, and they have evidence now that the masks truly work and help slow the spread of the virus. The social distancing does work, the hygiene does work. And then you saw a very significant thing happen there when the governor made the mask mandatory. And regardless of your political persuasion, I think you know that our governor mandating it shows that it didn't matter about the politics. As you know, he did not want to do that. And he did, because it is overwhelming. We have a video right now that's available on social media, and you can go to our website and see it too, because I ran across a doctor in Fort Worth that is the president of the National American Medical Association. And she also is a doctor in infectious diseases. And she gave an incredible testimony about the mask and social distancing and so forth. And I'd love for you to spread that video. I hate to use the word spread, don't I? It's probably not a good word to be saying, but I'd like for you to share this video there, because it is so important. I don't know why the mask became so political there, and it didn't need to be. Public health needs to be taken out of the political realm, and we need to be taking care of ourselves, just like wearing a seatbelt. there. You know, we wear that. And then also one of the doctors I was speaking with gave a great analogy. I thought that, hey, you can you know, throw your fist and swing your fist all you want to until it starts to come into contact with another person. And these masks keep you from coming into contact with another person and violate their rights there. And of course, the very important thing is wear the mask for your neighbor, for your friends, for your family there to help take care of them, and also wear it so that we can be able to provide for our families, because businesses will not be able to be open if we don't wear these masks. The virus is still here, and we need to wear the mask so that we can open our businesses. And then this has been politicized also, but you will see I've had the opportunity, because of being in leadership of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, to be selected for a Harvard Bloomberg program, which gives me access to some of the top medical professionals at Harvard and at Johns Hopkins. And they will share with you that you cannot, and by the way, they are all Democrats. They're in the mix of that, and they will share with you that you cannot separate the economy from the mental and physical health of a person. It is all part of that. And what are they talking about? If someone loses their job or they're having a tough time providing for their family, we see the rise of domestic violence. We see child abuse. We see suicides. All kinds of tension and crime goes up. And so consequently, even here in Arlington, we are working on, with our economic recovery task force, it became very clear that we need to become one of the cleanest and healthiest cities. And when you define health, it's mental, physical, and economic health, all three of those combined. So this is a very long answer, and it's very complicated, and I have been on a mission to go to medical professionals, both local and nationally, because I am so disturbed by the national media, who puts on so many different, you can find whatever you want to hear on national television, and please don't pay attention to everything you see on the television, because a lot of it is wrong.
Well, I can appreciate why you have been so successful as a consensus builder, Mayor Williams. If schools can't hold in-person classes, then some parents will need some flexibility in their jobs. And some essential workers might need childcare to be available at a reduced cost. Many of these decisions are made by state and federal governments. What, if anything, can the city do to help address these kinds of issues?
Well, that is some of the good news, Lisa, that I have to share with you, is that our county has mobilized and created more childcare opportunities here for our citizens. However, I can tell you, if we're not able to go back into school, it is going to be very, very hard there, because there will be, some jobs you can work at home, but many jobs you can't, and there's no choice there in that. And we're all watching very closely there for our schools. And and by the way, I just want to mention too, our school districts and our private schools have been working very hard to be able to work through their being able to open in the presence of the virus. I don't know all of the protocols that the schools have had. They were just turned in to our medical director of the city for her to review. She said yesterday when I was visiting with her that, and by the way, her name is Dr. Cynthia Simmons. She's a remarkable doctor, very impressed with her. She has done remarkable work. And in fact, through all of this, many people have tried to hire her away from the city of Arlington there with it. But anyway, in the mix of that, she is now reviewing that, and she said her initial reaction, she's very impressed with what is going on. And one of the questions that we heard yesterday, wasn't it, Sherry, about what will happen if one of our children becomes infected? Will they just close the school down or close the class down? No, they will not. They are going to work through it. And then I can share with you, I've had a lot of parents, even though the city doesn't run the school districts or the private schools, I've had a lot of citizens there in particular that now have their kids in in public schools, talking about if they have to go virtual, that they may be moving to private schools so that they can keep their kids in the classroom. And of course, it is a different argument for our kids because it doesn't affect the virus does not affect them as much. Even when they get it, it's much milder cases. However, let me just mention adults. There, you never know which adult their body is going to react differently, even though they may not have underlying conditions. And we have seen some of that, and definitely those that are over the age of 65 and have underlying conditions, it has been much more severe. And in fact, a lot of our deaths have occurred in our nursing homes and senior centers.
Right. So, on a different note, what are the greatest challenges that you see facing the city of Arlington at the present time, other than the things that we've talked about? And how are you addressing them?
Well, we can, in fact, I just addressed the National Metro Economies Committee of the U.S. Conference of Mayors was starting out with this, that we are currently faced with two crises that are very real. And one, of course, is the virus, and we have to be able to exist with the presence of the virus because we don't know when a vaccine will be here or how long it's going to operate. And then the second thing is that we also are faced with a crisis here in our fight against racial discrimination, that we have to take care of both of these and before we can really be able to move out on any other issues. And we do have to keep our city moving there throughout, but we have to address those two. And then sadly enough, their communication is, I believe, one of the huge problems that exist throughout the world and the community. And isn't that amazing? I would say that with all of the technology advancements, but the problem is everybody is going to different places to get their communication. But literally as little as 10 or 12 years ago, we could put it in the Star Telegram and 90% of our citizens would know what was going on. Not so anymore. And so being able to communicate with our citizens about what is really going on, what objectives are, and then battling against the very negative atmosphere that social media has brought. Please don't go to social media for your news there. And basically, I mentioned I'm in that Harvard Bloomberg program. Well, I have a Harvard leadership professor that I consult with each month. And about a year ago, he told me, he says, you need to stay away from reading so much of the Facebook comments, because the last thing your city needs is a depressed mayor. And some of these negative comments, even though you know they're not true, they actually will factor into your decisions and really can create some bad decisions. So consequently, we are on a mission on communications and collaboration. And I believe the number one thing in any community is to have unity. And so we are working really hard on it. And here in Arlington, we have risen to be one of the top cities in innovation. We have created more jobs than any other city in the last 3 years. We have been selected as the best run city in Texas the last 2 years. And we have risen to be the leading tourism city in North Texas there. And in fact, that has helped us through past recessions, but it is not pandemic proof. So I dare say the things that I just shared with you, probably most of y'all had no idea of any of those were taking place here in our city. And then the last thing I'll say is that I am so excited about our faith-based community. They are together, they want to work together, and I'm very appreciative of that, because that hasn't been the case there in many periods of Arlington's history. And I am really looking forward to the leadership of our faith-based community here as we pull out of these two major crises.
So I'm going to take a couple questions from the chat. The first is, and I'm just going to read it. It says, if Arlington is implementing a kindness initiative in the school system, does this include protections for teachers of all types, including LGBTQIA and other orientations?
It does, and as a matter of fact, isn't it awesome? Because what is one of the biggest deterrents of hate? Kindness. And kindness can blot out that. And in fact, I was very proud there when you bring up the LGBT community. We just did the first proclamation celebrating Pride Month here this last weekend. We are working towards really fighting all kinds of discrimination, and it was very interesting. Two that came forward very clearly in emails and calls from friends that I got was directly related to LGBT and religious persecution, religious freedom. And I really thought, that we have made great strides in both of those, but we have got to work harder. And then two, I think Arlington has had a bad reputation, especially in LGBT discrimination there in the past, that it truly existed, and we have got to work hard there against that. And I just want to say that there is no room there for hate in successful communities, and working against that. And it has to happen every day. It's a journey, because if you work at it hard for a year and then quit, we'll just see the rise of it. So it's going to be very important that we work every day there to reach out to our neighbor, regardless if they are very different than us. In fact, it's the other way around. Challenge yourself and know that you are going to be blessed if you do reach out to someone who is very different than you, that is your neighbor. And that's the celebration of diversity that we need to be happening, that needs to be happening in Arlington all the time.
Okay. So I have another question from the audience. It's about term limits. What do you think about term limits in general, and with respect to the position of mayor in particular?
Well, it's an interesting thing, because 2 years ago there had been no discussion about term limits, and we had a citizens petition come forward, and there was something that I did not know, and many of you probably don't know, but 80% of citizens across America want term limits, and they don't differentiate between federal, state, and local. And so consequently, that petition came forward with a 6-year term limit and a death penalty to anyone who has served that 6 years. They are done and can never come back to serve again. And it is the most restrictive term limit policy in America. And consequently, I do know without a doubt that our citizens support term limits. But when I'm out in the community, I can't tell you the number of people that have told me that, hey, we want term limits, but we know you can get that changed, and we need a different term limit. And then I'll share with you from my experience there too, that term limits can work there, but however, when they are as short as 6 years, actually brings into question stability of government, because you have council members that don't serve the whole 6 years. Whatever your term limit is, most cities, your council members actually serve less than what those term limits are. In addition to that, there is a learning curve there for everyone when they come in to be a council or mayor, without a doubt. And in the 6 years, that pretty much eliminates their two, either council members or a mayor, from becoming into leadership of many of the foundations and associations and so forth. And I'll give you an example of the Regional Transportation Council here in the Metroplex. That term is in the past, and I'll give you an example, Council Member Wildman was actually the chair of that. And when you're the chair, you are able to really advance a lot of the funding and so forth in your area. And so consequently, both Arlington and Tarrant County benefited greatly from her being chairman there through that. Well, I would have been the Regional Transportation Council chairman, but we have term limits. And so in May, I will be out and I had to turn that down because I would not be in office there through it. So there's a lot of considerations there through it. And then I'll just give you an example. Even Dallas, which has one of the most restrictive, has an 8-year term limit, and then they let you sit out and then you can come back. Well, we have some young council members even now that I would think that perhaps in their 60s, they may even, or 70s, may even be better council members, but yet they are done for the rest of their life there because of that. So consequently, we have formed a term limit committee that is not looking at all at abolishing term limits. It's studying what other cities are doing and then coming forward with a recommendation on another term limit proposal to put on the ballot. And then citizens will still have the choice to leave the term limit just as it is, or they will have another opportunity to vote for another term limit there with it. And yes, on this term limit committee, there are many that were actually campaigned for the term limit and were leaders of that campaign there on the term limit. So let me be very clear. I am not out there campaigning for myself. I am trying to do what the people asked to do, to have a choice in term limits. And I never want to discourage citizen dialogue and citizen input on that. And so, in the future, citizens will have a chance to vote on what they want in the way of term limits.
All right. Well, thank you. I know somebody said that the best term limit is called voting. And so I thought that was an interesting way of looking at it. Another question from the participants. What is the strength of Arlington's budget at the present time? And I know we have the pandemic. Do you anticipate having to raise taxes over the next year or two?
That is an awesome question. And it is one that is near and dear to my heart because I am leading a national effort right now. And maybe I need to start from square one. Arlington, Texas has a AAA bond rating. And so we are in excellent financial shape. In addition to that, our pension plan is in excellent financial shape, because you hear that about many cities that are having trouble with their pension plans, or the state, and we're not. We are in good shape on our pension plan. And then consequently, that AAA bond rating means that we are able to, when we're repairing our streets and our utilities, we're able to get an excellent bond rate. So we're able to repair more of that. And yes, we have reserves that are built in for times such as this. Now, consequently, we don't know how long this pandemic is going to take. And then in addition to that, we need to be able to rebound economically very quickly. So I have been asked by the U.S. Conference of Mayors to co-chair an effort here right now. And in fact, I was on a Zoom call with mayors from Pennsylvania here just a minute ago, so that the next CARES Act will actually include cities there to help replace the revenue loss, which is a direct result of the coronavirus. Just like you would receive federal funds if we had a tornado or a flood. Here we have a pandemic, and so this revenue loss is a direct result of the coronavirus. And we have been working with our congressmen who have passed a bill already through Congress that does exactly that. It also includes money for businesses too, to help them survive, and specifically small businesses. So we are working towards getting that money, which will help us. We are currently taking budget cuts. We are experiencing a $20 million shortfall there in our budget. And so we are taking budget cuts, which has included some furloughs. It has included reductions in different departments, anywhere from 2% to 15% in our city departments there along the way. And then we are prepared there if we need to use reserves, but our budget that we're proposing for this next year does not get into using our reserves, because again, we don't know how long this is going to last, because we're in the beginnings of a recession also due to the coronavirus. Now, good news is that interest rates are low and there is a lot of private capital. There is money to invest, which is very different from the recession of 09 and 2010. And so we do hold out great hope, but we don't know how long it is, how long that's going to be. And then as far as raising taxes, y'all never want to raise taxes there. That's just a given. And basically what you have seen here, Arlington was experiencing the greatest economic prosperity we have ever experienced in our history when this hit. And now there we will be going exactly opposite and being very creative there in our cuts to still provide services to our citizens that and work on the quality of that and not raise taxes.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I spent most of my adult life, almost all of my adult life here in Arlington, and so I am happy that you are here and helping and are keeping our taxes low as well. So another question in the chat is, given your success as a consensus builder during a difficult time, many difficult times, do you have any suggestions for actions and practices civic organizations and religious organizations can take to help those groups overcome political divisions, to work together for the common good?
Well, you just defined one of the major problems there of America, is the dividing lines of the parties. And all of us saw before, you would see Democrats and Republicans working together there and reaching across the aisle. Now there are penalties for doing that. And Bob Schieffer, the CBS News correspondent that's a Fort Worth native, he was asked the question at a banquet that I was at here. He said, what do you see as one of the biggest problems in America? He said that the quality of elected official has gone down tremendously. He said, when I went into the business, he said, elected officials were who I wanted to hang out with. They were usually some of the best people in America. But now so many of them do not want to be subjected to the media. They also are very discouraged because they can't get things done because Republicans and Democrats won't work together. And so unity, again, is so critical for us to be able to work every way we can. And I am very encouraged that and one of the reasons I was willing to serve, I have not been a politician. I never ran for any other office before I came in here. I was a lifelong worker in our nonprofit community and have been chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. But I could see that at a city level, because we were nonpartisan, that we could get things done, and we have. But yet it's still so hard to, we have to work at it all the time to keep people together. Next door many times has been one of my biggest problems, because things will get posted on Nextdoor that are not true. I spend a whole lot of time there dispelling myths that go on Nextdoor. And Nextdoor is a great tool. You know, it can be used very well, but then also, please don't believe everything that you read. But there again, that is so important. Again, communication and getting that word out there is a very critical thing. And then something I want to share with you about taxes, because, you know, here it is, the mayor talking about taxes. You know, just because of that title, many have a biased opinion against the mayor. Well, the fact is, Arlington has lower property taxes than Mansfield, Grand Prairie, or Fort Worth. And we have full exemptions on our property taxes. And then yet those taxes are very high, aren't they? And of course, the reason for that is the inflation and the cost of providing those services, because government and our city government is subject to, it costs us more each year to pick up the trash, to repair the streets. We are subject to that same inflation that each one of us has. So it is a battle against raising taxes and having quality city services. And the way to combat that is for a city to create jobs. And that's both in existing businesses and new businesses, and to bring tourism in. Those are the two main ways that we're able to generate dollars, so we don't have to raise taxes there to still fight inflation.
Okay, well, thank you. Speaking of the streets, I'll take 1/2 a second and say that I'm on our neighborhood association, and I called the city. And within 45 minutes, this huge sinkhole that had appeared was completely fixed. I mean, that was within an hour. I mean, I called and it was done. I couldn't believe it. So those were my tax dollars at work. Thank you very much.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. That is a very real thing that happened. Our Chamber of Commerce and our school district have a program called What's the Big Idea? And they asked the elementary and junior high kids, what are some of the things that we ought to be doing in our city to improve our city? And they literally get thousands of submittals, and they are given awards. Well, my first year in office, I had a 5th grader that was a winner that proposed for General Motors to put on the front of every car a sensor that would locate the potholes and move the car away from the potholes. And the sensor would have a GPS locator, and it would locate that pothole and send the location directly to the mayor's office. Well, I laughed about that, but then I thought, that has real merit. And so I went to our IT department and asked them to create an app that you could actually put on your iPhone, to where when you see a pothole, you could literally just push one button and it would send it directly, not to my office, but directly to our pothole repair crew that I had formed, and they go out and repair them. So you can see how the know-how of our youth can be phenomenal. And then in addition to that, it's so important that we take care of things like potholes. Extends the life of our streets. And isn't it frustrating if you pull out of your driveway and you see the same pothole month after month? So we've got 2 pothole repair crews that go out every day and repair potholes. So you can complain about a pothole, but please report it there to our city, and we'll get it repaired.
So speaking of transportation, I'm sure you've heard this one before, but Arlington is the 2nd largest city in the country without public transportation. Yeah.
Here is a direct result of communication problems here, and some of you know my background, and Lisa shared a little bit of it. And this was a real problem for me. Here I am, a civil engineer there who has designed we designed Interstate 30, the 3 bridges project in front of that. And then yet what Lisa said was very much prevalent. We really didn't have any public transportation, and we were known as one of the largest cities in America without transit. Well, we didn't have the money to join DART or to join the Trinity Metro. And when I actually met with them, it was literally going to be a long time before we got anything meaningful. And we had a bus service there that was running from Centerport, the Centerport rail station, that would come into downtown, and we were getting very few riders. It was a very limited route there too, and so I was in a real quandary. Well, I went to a transportation conference down at College Station at Texas A&M, and it was it attracted some of the top transportation professionals and companies that were doing transportation innovations. And I talked to the head of IBM World Technology, who was actually based in Belgium. And he said, every day there is a new invention in transportation that is coming out now. And it is going to be a new day. And he shared with me that light rail and buses are going to be outdated, and there are new technologies that are going to be coming that will replace them. And it got me to thinking. I came back with our staff. Our city manager was already looking at innovation. And so I said, let's open Arlington up as a laboratory for these new transportation inventions so that we can potentially utilize them. That we get to see how they work right here on our streets. So we were the first city in America to run a driverless autonomous shuttle for the public. We also have been the first city in Texas to run autonomous vehicles on it. And then we developed a program that had never been done in America, in which it's technology ride-based ride share, that we went to Uber, Lyft, and other companies to see if they would partner with us. A company by the name of Via actually was our partner. And we now are having Mercedes-Benz vans pick up our citizens within a block of their home and then take them to wherever they want to go there within the service area, or we'll take them to Centerport to where they can catch the rail or go into the airport. And it covers from 360 over to Fielder Road to Lamar Boulevard on the north to our south city limit line at Mansfield. And we are about to make it citywide. We actually were given federal funds to be able to make it citywide, and here after the first of the year. It is the most successful transportation program in America, and now 75 major cities have adopted it. And it doesn't matter how much the density is. Little cities can use it too. And the Tarrant County Mayor's Council has voted to extend this service throughout Tarrant County. And right now, the North Central Texas Council of Governments is studying how that can be done. And we are also entering into a pilot project that would be elevated autonomous transit that would be done at General Motors to take the completed vehicles over 360 to the railroad depot and then test that technology with passengers also. But imagine, instead of light rail going down and tearing out our streets to be able to put it in at $50 million a mile, to be able to use this technology that would be mounted on steel poles and elevated, and they could be installed in our parkways without tearing up our streets or without using any of the capacity of our streets, and going over the top of traffic signals and going over the top of the railroad that divides our city very much in a north-south city. In addition to that, we have smart traffic signal technology programs going with Waze, and much research being done there. And now Arlington just was designated as the Wattworks City's Gold certification, the only city in Texas to receive that, and one of only a handful throughout the nation. So we're not there in transportation, but we've been doing some catching up, and we're doing that for a fraction of the cost. And by the way, during the COVID, when people weren't going out to work and weren't venturing, we were able to downsize the program and save money, while Trinity Metro and DART had fixed cost. And basically, that was a big noose around their necks. So are we there in transportation? No. Are we making strides? Yes.
Well, Mayor Williams, once again, I am a proud Arlington resident. I'm so glad you're at the helm, and it is just a delight to hear all of the fascinating things that are taking place in Arlington, and it's very encouraging to hear your words and to have you here today. So thank you very, very much for joining us. It's an honor to have you here, and thank you to everyone who has attended.
Well, thank you. Go ahead, Cantor.
Sorry, Mayor Williams. I also wanted to say too, on behalf of Congregation Beth Shalom, we again appreciate your time. We know that you are stretched very thin right now. Just sitting in that meeting yesterday, I could tell that, you know, I can't understand how this can't be wearing on you, but we really appreciate it. We hope that when God for a Shabbat service, that would be wonderful, or even, you know, on Zoom, we're gonna be doing those for a while too, so that you can get to know more about our community and our rituals and customs and holidays. So thank you again from all of us.
Well, y'all please look for opportunities, and I will come there too, and very much appreciate each one of you. And thank you for living here in our community. And thank you for praying and caring about our community and caring for our citizens here. And thank you for being a beacon of light, which we need so much. And hopefully, too, you can be ambassadors for the information that we shared, which is so important. And I was honored to be here with you. Thank you very much, and stay healthy and stay strong.
Thank you. Thank you. And everyone looking forward to seeing you tonight at our book club at 7 p.m. Bye, everyone.